Because that also balances.
And I'll call
how
our
much is in the
meeting
checking
to
account,
order.
Blah, 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 and,
The investments in the three.
right.
Meeting is called to order. Rob, please call the roll. Almost said Kevin.
Mr. Babcock.
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet.
Here.
Mr. Bear.
Here.
Mr. Whitaker.
Here.
Mr. Avery.
Here.
Mr. Hannah.
Here.
All members of council are present. Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And good evening, everyone. This is the regular session of the Enon Village Council, and this is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023. Additions to our agenda, please.
Under old business, I'd like to bring up the Citizens Park and Sports Complex.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Babcock.
As well as committee reports from the public safety meeting,
Public Safety Committee, Mr. Hannah.
and again, follow up on the park too.
I'll let you guys tag team. How's that sound? Okay.
One clearly leads to the other.
Exactly right. Let's go into approval of the minutes, and it looks like we need to do the meeting on October 10th, 2023. So I would entertain a motion and a second to approve those as presented unless there's any kind of corrections that need to take place on those.
I move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock.
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet.
Yes.
Mr. Bear.
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Abstain based on absence.
Those minutes are approved as presented. Let's go to Tuesday, October 24th, 2023. And again, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve those as presented unless there are any corrections.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock.
Abstain based on absence.
Mrs. Sweet.
Yes.
Mr. Bear.
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker.
Abstain.
Mr. Avery.
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
Those are approved as presented. Thank you very much. And Rob, it is my pleasure to turn this part over to you. Good evening.
Financial reports for the month of October are presented for your review and approval. Mr. Babcock told me that previously you were used to seeing the cash summary report, which I'm happy to provide in the future. There really isn't a template about which reports you have to have, so I can fashion them however you would like. Nothing really sticks out in the month of October. We're plugging along. Our appropriations are getting a little bit tight, so we're moving money where we can to make it through the end of the year. Money's not the issue, it's just how much we budgeted in the beginning of the year to make it through. So mostly in contractual services. But I'm not in a position to need to ask for any supplementals at this time. So unless there are any questions for me.
So just a brief comment about that. This happens every year in October and December. We have a little shuffling that goes on, and that's why you have that flexibility to do that on behalf of the council when we put that budget through to the county auditor. The way that we started doing it 3 or 4 years ago was to give you that flexibility within the personnel services versus, what do we call it, the other, which would be contractual services, capital outlay, and that type of stuff. That gives you that ability, which you should have. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes.
Very good. So unless there are questions, if someone would move to approve the October financials.
So moved.
Well, we typically go over them a little bit just to see how much balance is not only for them, but just as a reminder for us. Probably at the fund level, revenue, for police fund and water and stuff like that. I mean, Tim can go through it like he has in the past and just so you can see if you want.
So typically, like on that first page there, fund status, that's the report. Obviously, it shows our balances, current balances, general fund, $183,168. Street construction, maintenance, and repair, $87,898. Those are both very healthy, And then we have that negative balance there on the state grant that we chip away at. And Rob, that is, if I remember correctly, $15,000 a year. So we're whittling away at that. ARPA funds, $131,000 going into police levy, $296,536. Water operating, $375,768, and that contingency fund, $110,000. So the total of all funds, $1,114,421.01.
I'll move that we accept the financial report as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock,
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
Has been, I'm sorry.
You said you will include the cash summary by fund.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
No
you.
problem.
Yeah, I know
And those are available for me to email anybody at any given time. I can do them by date. So whenever anyone's curious.
Rob, anything else? I know let's bring up real quick, we're looking at the best way and the right way to develop a specific fund that would accommodate donations for the development of the new sportsplex. So I know you're checking into the auditor's office to see exactly what we need to do there and waiting on a response. But I think the idea is we would like to see a separate fund for that in the future that we can look at and say, hey, we've got X amount of dollars in it when we start receiving donations.
So I've spoken with Clark County and with the state auditor's office, and I'm waiting back for more specific guidance from the state. My idea, and they concurred, is if we are going to house that money within the village, which I think is probably best in terms of accountability and how it will be accessed, is that we create a Parks Capital Improvement Fund. And that fund can be within the pooled money that we have, or we could have a separate investment account under the village's auspices. But there are restrictions on the type of funds that can be entered into by a village. There would be restrictions on the use of that money, and I think that that's a good thing, that we wouldn't be able to use those donations for operational purposes if you had a capital account. The best way to create that is going to be by ordinance, and we probably would want to involve the solicitor to draft up legislation that restricts those uses and explicitly spells that out so that we have something for the record and for the audit.
And you know, that way we would have that protection for years down the road as well. So great.
And it would also give the opportunity to define how interest earned on those funds are able to be expended in the future. If there's a limitation on how much of the interest that can be used in any given year, we could spell that out too. If you wanted that capital fund to be ongoing once the park itself is completed.
And we would want the interest on those monies to go right back into that, right? Correct? Is that what you're
Right, but
saying?
we could
Or-
say that
or
you
we
could only expend, as an example, you could only expend 75% of the interest earned in any given year, and that 25% had to go back onto principal to keep going, if you wanted to have a restriction like that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, one addendum to that, I attended the trustees meeting a week ago Monday, and this was discussed about the account being set up, and they had no objections to us go ahead and taking the lead off of that and setting everything up. So that's,
Excellent.
yeah, including Mr. Rudy, or Mr. Rudy deferred to us to go ahead and move forward on that.
Great.
Could I just add that I've already been approached by a member of the public that they want to donate, so they need to know where to put the money. So I'm glad we're working on it.
If people are wanting to give by the end of the year for their own tax purposes, we might want to move on this quickly before our next meeting.
So we need to hear back from, just make sure the auditors folks and make sure, and then we figure out exactly the wording on that ordinance, if that is the proper route.
Right, and we
Gotcha.
could, once that's done, we could accept those donations into our working accounts that we have, because we do fund accounting and we can still track that and the percentage of those dollars in the fund at any given month and end of any given month. We would just divide the interest between the funds that we have now. And so that fund would earn its share. So we wouldn't be in a rush to necessarily set up a separate interest-bearing instrument by the end of the year. We could have more time for that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I don't imagine that we would be anticipating any expenditures in this calendar year, so
I don't
we
think
wouldn't
so.
have to do new approval from the county for the budget. We wouldn't have to adjust our budget.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. You know what? I have one item of communication that just popped in my head. I want to thank our voters for the overwhelming passage of our operating levy. I think it was, did anybody get the percentage? Was it 76% it passed by?
It was 70-something.
70, in any case, much appreciated, and that's what allows us to, in part, keep the lights on. So we appreciate that. Let's go to staff reports. Kevin, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents. First item on the agenda, on my agenda, there's a Mayor Court report in front of you or in your packet. For the month of October, there was 5 traffic cases. Total funds received for the current month is $1,575. Year-to-date, $17,428.92. Total remitted to the state, $289.50. Year-to-date, $3,105. Total remitted to the village for the month at $1,278. Year-to-date, $14,109.92. And then the total dispersed was $1,575 current month, and year-to-date, $17,428.92.
I'll move that we accept the mayor's court report as
I'll
presented.
It's been moved and seconded. And call the roll, please.
Mr. Babcock,
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next item, little update on Cardinal Tank. We got an emergency repair that we have to do last Thursday or Friday, I think it was Thursday. Jason called and asked me, how do you feel about climbing the water tower? And I said, yeah, we'll do that.
You like heights.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I
Yeah.
don't mind it. So, because they went in there, did their Friday checks on Thursday, and water was leaking inside the Cardinal tank. So, climbing up to the top there, I'd seen where it was coming from, where the standpipe comes into the bowl of the tank on the inside. The water was coming out of there. So, I wasn't going to tear into it, but we knew where it was coming from. So we called Clear Creek Coatings, the water tank company that has done work for us and painting and things like that. They came back out on Friday and climbed up, and he looked at it a little bit more without taking the insulation off the standpipe. He'd seen that it was leaking. There's a crack in the weld, a stress crack in the weld right there where it goes into the bowl of the tank. So, and as the water fills up, it comes out of that crack naturally, and it was leaking pretty good. So, so they did give us a price, although the price to fix it, to re-weld the seam and then put a stainless steel kind of expansion joint around it to help control the stress. I guess I didn't know this, but as it fills and lowers, that pipe kind of moves an inch, each way. So, which creates a little, more stress, and so they're going to put some sort of stainless steel expansion joint around there to help relieve that stress. The price to fix is $10,500. The sad thing is they're 4 to 6 weeks out, with parts, trying to get parts. They're going to try to get as soon as they can. They emailed Jason today to hopefully they'll get it sooner than that, but that's what they're kind of assuming right now. So in the meantime, Jason drained the tank, and so we're just working off the Main Street tank right now.
What was the price again?
$10,500. So I would need council's approval for that emergency repair.
Does that include the collar that they're going to
Yes.
weld in?
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
complete. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Call the roll.
Mr. Babcock,
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The BZA meeting met to discuss a variance for chickens that was presented to them. After further discussion, they decided to table the issue until December 4th to get some more questions cleared up. I know some of the committee wanted to research some of the zoning, our zoning, as well as the Ohio Revised Code and things like that. So the next meeting for that issue, for that variance request, is December the 4th at 6 o'clock.
And I encourage everybody to let the due process that's in place play itself out. Results of the BZA, if an individual is not happy, their next step is to come to council. So we do have a due process in place, and let's just see how this one plays out, please.
You don't want to ruffle any feathers.
I was thinking the same thing.
And
The item number 4, the wastewater line replacement project, that was a little stressful, a little bit of anxiety here about a week ago or so. Come to find out, got an email saying that we weren't funded. So I got a hold of Lewis right away and from Clark County, and he said, well, yeah, we scored that and it should have been funded. So I said, well, I got an email from Will saying it wasn't funded. I didn't know what was going on, need to find out what's going on. So he got a hold of Will right away, and because I got on the portal where I submitted it to, I had all the emails and everything, so that's one good lesson, to keep all your emails and stuff. So, but once I got on the portal, I couldn't see it. It wasn't listed as a project. So Lewis got a hold of Will at the state level, and they have no idea where that went. It shows, Lewis said, that, I can see where you submitted it, but after that, they don't know where it went. So Will shuffled around, and we are getting funded. They're using the returned money, from other places that didn't need money or whatever. So it's still going on. So
This has been the weirdest project. I mean, we're dealing with the railroad, and then when I asked you about the schedule, and then it didn't show up on the website, and the gist of it is, I think the schedule has just been shifted by 6 months, right? That's all we did. So start date won't be until in the spring. So
start date. I mean,
Correct,
we
or
can.
no?
I got the signed copy agreement.
so we can start anytime.
We can start
Okay.
anytime. Should begin by April and completion by July. So yeah, we can start anytime. It's approved. So
But our new schedule is April
April
next
20th,
spring.
yeah.
Okay.
The small government item there, we did not get funded for the water treatment plant expansion. I turned that into OPWC. It didn't score high enough. So Lewis suggested that we possibly look into the small government funding. So we went ahead and resubmitted that and rescored. They rescored it, and they're going to review it. I got an email today saying that they'll look at it in the review process, and if there's any more information that they need, they'll let me know. So, but this is the small government naturally is statewide, so it's pretty competitive. So who knows if we'll score high enough in that even. So
And Lewis did advise that you had to break that down in a different manner, funding wise. That included a loan. I think it was $300,000 on the loan, $300,000 in the grant, and then we would come up with, was it about $200,000 over the course of 2 years, which we could handle. But we'll see what happens, because that is very competitive.
Yeah.
So
item number 6, the office finally got a new phone system in. So far, working great. A lot of good features on it. We can
use your phone.
we can
your
use
cell
our cell
phones, yeah.
phone. I can be on the beach, and it looks like I'm in the office. But not that I would do that. But anyhow,
Sure.
we can
not this week
not
anyway.
this week anyway.
Or maybe this week now that it's
No, but
getting
it
colder.
voicemails. It goes to our email, and I mean, it just has a lot of good features that I think we're going to be able to utilize. We haven't utilized half, at least I haven't, half of them right now. But we can program phones in there, and we get a lot of calls for the post office. We can hit a button, it'll transfer them right to the post office. We can hit a button, it'll
Cool.
transfer them to Clark. I did that with Clark County Building Department. or utilities, and I hit a button and it went right there. So it's a good system, I think, and it's going to be really neat to learn how to utilize it a little bit more. So just wanted to November the 24th. We normally close the Friday after Thanksgiving, so I don't know if we need council's approval on that. So
I'll move that we
Yeah,
close
let's do a motion.
Friday after Thanksgiving. What is it? The
I'll second.
24th?
24th.
Yep.
Moved and seconded. Dave, did you second that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And call the roll.
Mr. Babcock,
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes.
And the last thing I have is, we talked about before, previous meetings about the booster station down there, kind of moving the pumps and everything up. We do have probably 3/4 of the catwalk built. The electric company is going to be coming in to start the process of moving everything up, and then we'll finish putting the catwalk, and there's some piping down there that we'll have to repair. But other than that, that's probably about 2 weeks out. The electric company will be in to
We're
start.
waiting on permits, right, from Clark County?
Clark
Isn't that
County, yep.
Latest thing? Okay.
Yeah. So, other than that, I think that's all I have.
Do we have a POC for like our Outlook email accounts? Like that I can get. I got a new phone a couple months ago, and I haven't been able to get back into my village email.
I'm not
I-
getting anything
at
from my
Bridge
village
Group.
email. Yeah.
Bridge group.
Jason or Casey there, Bridge Group, yeah. I
Okay.
can give you the number. I
Yeah.
mean,
I was gonna say, let Kevin get
yeah.
you hooked up there.
I can give you a
Yeah.
number because there's like a certain number you call it, like a general number, and they
Okay.
just kind of assign it a ticket number, things like that. So,
Okay.
And I'm not seeing where I'm receiving any of my my village emails either. I've been testing that lately on.
okay.
That dual authentication went through. Did
And
set that up?
I will say, yeah, to pick up on that, the authentication process is one where you have to literally enter a number to, unlike Clark State or some other places where you just have to hit approve or whatever, but you literally have to enter a number. Today I received an email that went right to quarantine. Is that the right word for it? Quarantine. And it had been sent from Rick. It had Rick's name on it.
Well, that makes
but
sense.
It was not from Rick, so. So those safeguards are in place. And I know we had a municipality recently that, was experiencing ransomware, I guess is the best way to put it. So.
And off with that, I got an email today too. I didn't recognize the email, the sender basically. It was said, to review these documents and blah, 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 So I forwarded it on to Bridge Group there, and he quarantined it. And so
So we do have safeguards in place then?
through Bridge Group, yes.
Okay.
So far, they're in my opinion, they're doing pretty good.
I agree.
I mean, you should be able to hit report and phishing, and then it goes directly to your MSP as well.
That's what he told me after he emailed me back. He said just right click on the email or the and it'll come up phishing.
Yeah, it's
or
also at the
junk.
top, it's also at the top bar under report.
Oh,
It'll say
okay.
junk or phishing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have like Rick's email for junk, but it's not phishing. So maybe that's what you did, Tim. I'm not quite sure. That's why I went to quarantine.
Any other questions?
Yeah, two things. I think usually whenever we annotate that we're going to close on November 25th, we offer to the employees that they can go ahead and take that Friday off with using their own pay. So
We do.
yeah, so we didn't address that, but I think that we need to make sure that that's very clear to everybody. If they don't want to work, then they can use their own pay to not come forward.
That's correct.
Secondarily, Enon Road, the improvement on that is great. Just the new highway, the new markings, it just changes the whole perspective of going south on Enon Road. So just our thanks to everybody that worked in on that, and the told that it took on a lot of people, and it wasn't easy getting, but it's well worth it in the long run.
It was a big project, and the patience of everybody, it's paid off. And I think even the tie-in turned out to be pretty decent, because where the two meet, you never know what you're going to get, but it's not bad. So I agree. Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Chief, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Evening, council and residents. Just to piggyback on what Mr. Babcock said about the emails, if you want to report those, be cautious of emailing anything that you seem suspicious, because somebody might actually open it, especially after you've forwarded it to them. They might trust it, so cautious there. Anyways, our drug take-back results on the 28th, we only took in about 5 pounds that day, but we do it quarterly. But it worked out well. Then we transferred the drugs to the DEA the following day, so it was nice, and now everything's cleaned out and build back over the next few months. That program was started by Clark County Prosecutor's Office, Andy Wilson, who now has moved up to the Public Safety Director of the state. But that's
He's the head
if anybody
man.
was curious of the, so a couple of people had asked me, and I told them it originated from him, and he brought us the
Didn't know that.
mailbox. Yeah. Then he left, and we get to carry it on. So it was a good program started by him. I'll give him props for that. Today, November 14th, is National Seatbelt Day. For those of you, it's just a reminder that seatbelts do save lives. I got on the National Highway Transportation NHTSA website, and just a couple notes I found interesting. In 2021, there's 11,813 passenger vehicles, occupants killed in crashes that were not wearing their seatbelts. And among some of the youngest adults are the age 18 to 34, so 59% were unbuckled. That's one of the highest percentages for all age groups. But I will tell you, I believe the state number was about 92% pass rate on people buckling up. I can tell you in the years that I've been in law enforcement, I noticed a lot more people are wearing their seatbelts than they were when I first started. So a positive note. Food for thought. Our recent crime in the area there on topic 3, I just want to highlight, we've had everywhere, motor vehicle thefts are at an all-time high all across the nation, particularly, well, everywhere, but property crimes in themselves too. I know I saw some social media posts there last week were communicated to me. We had to drive through outside, just outside our municipality, where some appear to be some juvenile males running into the store and with bags in their hand and snatching items off the shelves and knocking them over, and then before exiting the end of the drive-through. The business was open, it was active, the children were dressed in, I say children because they appear to be under the age of 18, but they were in the black hoodies pulled up over their head, the face mask and such on, dressed like what you would think you see on the TV out in other states where, I don't want to say it's tolerated, but it seems to be more more prevalent. But I just want to ask the community that they step forward with any information if you're not sure what jurisdiction you live in, feel free to reach out to our agency and we can pass it on to the agencies that would have jurisdiction on that. But I also want to encourage parents and everybody to just kind of look in-house and see if that's coming from inside your doors, and if it is, to just help society and try to fix that at the parenting level. It is a very dangerous thing to do for young people like that. There's a lot of citizens that will step in and try to handle that, but more importantly, when it looks like an aggravated robbery or some sort of robbery where they're, typically when you have a robbery type scenario, commonly most people assume there's a weapon involved. I hate to see these young people run around and imitating something they see off a social media site and end up causing harm to themselves or someone else by trying to get likes or whatnot. But at any rate, for what it's worth, I don't know who all saw that, but I was pretty disappointed when I saw that, to know that was just right outside of our boundaries there. So they're local, and I think we're better than that. So that's all I have on that. Let's take any questions on it. Secondly, close to home, Huber Heights did have a ransomware attack. With all the stuff going on in the world, the increased cyber crimes, which has already been bad, it's just going to get worse. It's just real important that we're watching what we're
what we're doing, clicking on, and just be careful who you're talking to. If you're unsure, I know this new phone system, I noticed that it loads up your inbox of missed calls. I'm sure there's a feature you can turn that off. But I think you were able to forward me a voicemail that was left, and I hesitated on that. I actually kind of inspected the email first because it's odd to have an attachment. If you click on an attachment, it never hurts to follow up. Typically, I do it a little advanced, but I just went ahead and investigated the email myself with some tools I had. But be careful on clicking on anything at any level, whether it's your home or
Attachment or link.
property. What's that?
Attachment or link.
Yeah, attachment or link. Yeah, any link. I always tell everybody, don't click on a link. You got to manually type in the URL yourself in the website. Don't click on a link. I typically don't even click on them from a trusted one. I'd say 95% of the time, and that's pretty. I go to the link that I know of. I try not to click on my email, but at any rate, they did have that over there. I know that was a pretty hard hit for them, but I also know that they had a meeting where they had to push out some expenditures to kind of combat that, and those folks that come in and have to do that aren't cheap. So, just for what it's worth. Other than that,
I want to say just a little bit about a nuisance property we have been working on because it's been very time consuming and kind of frustrating. Both departments have been working together. We've had some code enforcement issues. This has been on Fay Drive, and also some actual law enforcement issues. We have a lot of time wrapped up in this particular property, and I want to thank both of you for what you have done so far. The Village of Enon can only act within the parameters of the law, what we have on code. We have a due process for all that type of stuff. Some of the property owners in that area aren't maybe as happy as what we would like for them to be with the work that we have done, but we are continuing that work. Can't say a whole lot about it, but it is our goal to get that property in compliance and get people that are violating the law to bring them here to the mayor's court or to the next step. It's frustrating to me personally because I've taken a couple hits on that, and I've shared those with both of you, but I appreciate your work, and we're going to continue with that property until we reach our desired goal.
absolutely.
So, questions for our chief? Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Committee reports, Mr. Hanna.
Just briefly, you all have in front of you a summary of the minutes of our Public Safety Committee report, meeting on October 3rd. If there's any questions about that, then we'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, for Mr. Babcock or Ms. Sweet, I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? None? Thank you.
Old business, Mr. Babcock / Mr. Hanna.
Well, let me ask, you're putting that up there so the residents can see?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Rick, you want to go first? You want me
Go
to
ahead.
go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, everybody else knows, but in the fundraising side of the house, you have a pitch deck that we present to an organization or a corporation as we seek them to donate to our cause. This is a proposed pitch deck that we built. It's been coordinated with a couple, 3 people that I know from a fundraising perspective. One, a lieutenant general out of the Air Force, another one who helped raise the $30 million for the Ronald McDonald House here in Dayton. I worked with them a lot on this, trying to refine it. I will tell you, just kind of a pitch deck 101 before we get into it, that you never read the slides that are up here. I mean, you tell a story behind it and you kind of leave this with them. And then, for this to be successful, and there is a National Association of Fundraisers, it's got like 30,000 members and 200 chapters worldwide that kind of set standards and give advice on successful pitch decks. And we followed that. And this is what we have so far, but certainly looking for anybody to provide comments and inputs if they'd like. But one of the things that you're going to, I mean, the company already knows why you're there. So, you keep it professional, you keep it simple, you keep it short, and but you try and make a great impression that kind of appeals to them so that they can press on. And then the only other thing is practice, what you're going to say, because you don't read the slides because that looks bad. But you practice what you're going to say, you don't wing it, and you press on. But with that said, we're talking about we've always talked about the sports park. But in the discussions, having what might sell better to somebody that might donate is not only the sports park, but knowing that it's going to a community park or a citizens park as well. So that's why we kind of called it a citizens park and sports park complex or sports complex to get through that. And then just the title slide, what it's up there, just building that vibrant community. Go ahead, Kevin. Now, you wouldn't read this vision statement, but you would talk about, as community leaders, we're passionate about building a community that has the parks and the sports activities for citizens that make sense, so on and so forth. But that's kind of a vision statement just to kind of set the tone for where we're headed and why we're doing it. Go ahead, Kevin. And then the traditional model, you talk about the problem, you talk about the solution. How do we get here? And we talk about how we lost our sports parks, and when we built a new school, and the fact that our Enon Park is really, really small and really doesn't meet the needs of its citizens. That's our challenge. And then you talk about the impact that this has on the citizens as well as our kids and the professional organizations like our SAY programs and things like that it has on the kids to do that. And then, here's our solution. The Village of Enon and Mad River Township. And Mad River Township didn't have a seal. I made one up. Because just to give it that balance of the two circular seals. But you do our solution is we bought the ground. We're starting to build on it now and develop it now. And by implementing this solution, we're going to have multiple soccer fields. We're going to have a bunch of courts. We're going to have nature and fitness paths, playgrounds, picnic areas, concession stands, restrooms, all those kinds of things that make a new home or a different home inside our community. If you want to click, I don't know if anybody's seen these things before, but somebody had the foresight to get WHIO out here. I don't know where the sound is. But
More
anyway,
than 60 acres that will be transformed over the next several years from farmland to park. Enon Village Council President Rick Hanna says right now the possibilities are limitless. Money is the only thing that would restrict this land's future.
and we did not pay for him to say that.
Still a couple years away before it's ready to open. Reporting in Enon, James Ryder.
So and here just preface it, you're going to talk about how this is newsworthy stuff in southwestern Ohio that we bought this property to build a sports park. Go ahead, Kevin.
7 shows the view of the
Next-
land in
next
Park
slide.
County.
Go ahead, click again.
The slide or the
No, you can click on the slide or just. So we're going from that open field that you saw to a sports park that's going to look something like this, and just enjoy it. And you would say something like that during your presentation. This runs for just a little bit less than 2 minutes. And during the presentation, we may talk a little bit over it, just to kind of explain what's going on. So basically, you know, as we're going from farmland. Go ahead, Kevin. No, next slide. We're going from farmland, that's something that looks like this, to something that looks like this. And that's the power that we want to have in that presentation, just to show what we're going from and to, and how it's going to be designed to build a premier citizen and sports park. Go ahead, Kevin. This was something that we did not have in the original pitch deck, but Rick thought it was important to put in. And we were talking about this earlier today with the excavating company too, how our location is pretty cool. I mean, right off of 70, right in between, you know, for the most part, between Dayton, Columbus, how far we are from Columbus or Cincinnati or Indianapolis or even Toledo. And for all of us that have kids in sports programs and things like this, we know that we go to all these places or even further, you know, West Virginia and down in Kentucky or Tennessee. But the fact that where we're at, we're centrally located and easy to get to, and then we can show we're just less than a mile off of 70 right now. Go ahead, Kevin. And then you get to the kind of the meat of the thing. You know, all this takes money, as you well know, and the project, as we know it now, you know, barring any scope creep or inflation, it's going to be about $7 million. Just rounding, Tim, you know, because we talked about a 6.3, but, you know, I can guarantee you as a certified PMP, project management professional, it'll never hit 6.3. Okay. I mean, we will go over that. I know that. Just typical scope creep and or EPA crap that we're going to have to do or whatever the case may be. I'm just pitching it out there right now at 7. We can change that to 8 or 9 if you want. I don't care. But I know 6.3 isn't we're just roughly that. And then kind of a breakout. So, you know, kind of tugging on the heartstrings of the donors, the corporations that we're talking to, talking about how because social corporate responsibility is where they give back to the community. So we're kind of talking about that and the benefits that has. Next slide. So we're offering, you know, we'd like for you to participate as a sponsor, giving you these opportunities. Not that you would ever do this for what's in it for me, because everybody wants a strong community, but there are benefits to that, such as naming rights, logo placement, promotional activities, so on and so forth. So, you know, your last slide is always a CTA, call to action. So, you know, join us in building a better future for Enon by investing in the park, and how that contribution helps create a vibrant, inclusive community where recreation, fitness, and experience are available to all. So, and then at that point, we would ask any questions. So that's kind of the pitch deck that we have so far. Once it's finalized, you know, I can help. I mean, I've got a lot of words written for all this kind of stuff anyway already, but for that practice, and you're always going to tailor it a little bit to whoever you're speaking to. I mean, if that's Speedway or whether that's Dick's Sporting Goods or the Connor Group or, you know, whoever may invest, you're going to tailor it just slightly. But, again, it's that practice, but once the slides are built, then you can build around it.
Dave, if I was on the receiving end of this presentation and I was a Speedway, 7-Eleven, whoever, and I saw that gold sponsorship, what would be, and I would say, what would you consider a gold sponsor? What kind of, and I know it's putting you on the spot, but just kind of roughly, what would we think a gold sponsor would be? I mean, $500,000, $200,000, $1 million?
No, we're talking, for you to have gold sponsor or naming rights, you're probably talking at least about somewhere between a quarter and a third.
Okay.
So you're talking, somewhere between $2 and $3 million
Okay.
at that level. And then that gives you, and then again, I've brought it up a couple times before. We haven't had a meeting yet about setting some parameters that we want to have as far as naming rights, either for the park and or naming rights for a certain field. Like we have 4 ball fields. So maybe one could be the Speedway ball field or the Dick's ball field or the Connor Group ball field, or, the same thing goes for the soccer fields, naming them again for lesser contribution levels.
Thank you.
But from just talking with, Dick Reynolds and Amanda and even knowing the things that I know because of National Association of Fundraisers, that's a pretty much a standard, Tim.
Okay.
Is 25 to 33%. We'll get you that.
And that
And then
was
it
the
kind
thing
of
I
goes
was-
down from there.
That was the thing I was going to mention whenever it got my portion of this, is we need to actually have a meeting for the fiscal side of this. We've had enough on, I won't say we've had enough on the planning, but we need to get into this as far as setting up the accounts, getting up who's going to be on the committee as far as to what we talked about, the structuring of it, as well as the incremental levels, what we're looking for contributions. So, one time that we can get y'all together and get in here strictly for I'll call it the administrative side, and try to get those questions resolved. And I think that will help us move forward on particular people that we might be able to present this to.
And one of the things that we talked about with some of the other people I coordinated this with, building it is one thing. Like when they're building that new addition to the Ronald McDonald House across the street from Dayton Children's. That's nice. But if you don't have the funds to sustain it,
Yep.
then it's going to fail in the long run. And there have been several projects that both Dick, Amanda, and others have mentioned where they built it and then they couldn't sustain it and had to shut down.
One of the first things that one of those guys, I can't remember which company he was with, was it's not about just getting it done, but how do you keep it going? How do you
Right,
sustain
exactly.
it? That might be more difficult than coming up with the money up front, potentially.
It could be in the long run, but normally it's not. But you cannot forget to build that into your strategy. It's just vitally important.
If you all think there's anything that possibly got missed off of this, or it might be important to add, then we're still
I
looking.
mean, I know most of you have had it for, a few days, but anything you want to change, I take all questions, comments, and snide remarks. I'm used to that. So
There's just a couple words that I saw that need moved. I haven't been able to get to my email, so I haven't seen it until now.
You can use my computer.
But we'll have to log in with your account because I tried on my computer too and it's not working. But as you're talking about having this financial meeting, I think like from this past meeting that we had a week ago, if we were to get into doing a phased approach to doing this, I think we need it's going to help with determining your funding levels too, as far as gold or silver or bronze, however we split it up. I think you're going to need pricing for how much one baseball field costs or how much 3 pickleball courts are going to cost, whatever it may be. I think we need a breakdown of what each piece would cost, or like the whole concession stand. I just think it'd be better to have that when determining your sponsorship levels.
And that's part of the phone calls we made today to people, and the people that came out this morning, we met, Dave was there, Jason Rose was there, and myself, with Levan Excavating, and they do the actual physical part of putting in either turf fields or grass fields. That's their niche. They work with Conger Group, they work with the, if I say it right, the Motes Group, MOTZ, who are currently doing the remodel down at Fifth Third Field or Dayton Dragons Field. The phase was what we were looking at, and the first phase would be trying to turn the current soccer fields over and getting those done. Now, first thing we've got to do, and I started reaching out today, is to get the surveying done on the present soccer field so we can put that out for bids to find out exactly how much they're going to charge us for the dirt work on phase one and part of that. Now, once we start getting into further down the pike with the pickleball courts and the baseball diamonds and all that, you're normally going to have a services contract signed, similar to what we did with Conger Group, for them to come back and give you that comprehensive plan. So we've got to come up with the survey so we can put the bids out so we can get our price for the first phase of it. But as we continue into this, we're going to have to make some agreement with some professional organization to give us a realistic spectrum of what we're going to be facing and how might be the best way of going about that, because that's outside all of our pay grades. And, you know, 111,000, that wasn't feasible with Conger Group. We have phone calls waiting now with a group out of Texas that runs AIA. And that's the link I sent you with that Joe Fickle, I think, or where they're actually talking about it. You can actually go on YouTube, and SRC is the organization he's with. They've got a lot of videos. So to get that breakdown, we're going to have to make some type of services agreement with somebody. And I don't know if we're to that point yet until we talk to a couple more groups, but yeah, respectfully.
So from that last meeting we had, I'm not sure if anyone reached out to him. I can do that. I would rather talk to Enon Say Soccer and see if what we have down there they can use next year. Mm-hmm. Instead of tearing it up, redoing it, and it not being playable for another year. If they're able to use it, I'm not sure why we even go that route.
Of the soccer fields down there now, Look at them, they're kind of like a golf ball. So, you know, one of the things he did mention today, we were talking about piecemealing it or trying to bring some fill dirt in here and there. They didn't recommend that because he said basically you're throwing money away in that type of situation.
And that's what I thought
Yeah, Tim
could be
mentioned that
done.
earlier
And I
today.
said, why can't they come in and just level it out? And that is not gonna work.
At least that's what they told us. You know, if we want to go ahead and do that, that's going to save us a heck of a lot of money out the door, and conceivably, we could almost bring in some of our own equipment, or if you're not going to make it a premier place, make it playable. You know.
Well, that's what if we can make it playable, the sooner the better to me. I mean, I get let's go get $7 million and redo it all, but if we can have people down there next spring to play soccer and they're not having to lease fields outside of the village, I'd rather do that until we raise the money. And then, you know, we may have a season where they can't use it. But I just feel like I'd rather get people down there. I feel like we're going to have an easier time fundraising, especially around the village and the township, you know, with the residents, than holding off till we can raise $7 million to go.
Yeah, and there's no problem about that. You know, one way we could do it too is make the immediate change with what we've got to try to make the fields better. However, we're going to do it as soon as possible now, where it gets kind of fixed in before winter with the people we got. I don't know.
And what would it look like if we brought a roller in? Do we know anybody that enrolled that field? Would that change? Would that
Can't
have a
hurt.
huge impact
hurt.
on? I mean, that's all they did back, and I keep saying that over and over again. I apologize for that, but that's all they did back in the day, and it worked for them. And maybe that would be enough, Rick, to get us started.
We got to bring people in. We got to bring mommies and daddies, make them interested in Enon once again, and know that the soccer fields are down there.
Right.
And that's why there's such a haste now to try to get these things either out to grade or whatever we're going to do off of it. But we can't keep sitting still, not moving forward on this.
Right. Well, I'll reach out to, I think it's Jay Crow, and have him go down there and check it out anyway.
And I did ask Brooke prior to the meeting to kind of be our center point with girls softball, with all the different little leagues in that group. So that way we've got a point of contact that they can reach her and as well as she can reach them.
Yep.
For all of our meetings. And that way we don't want to disenfranchise anybody off of this, but we got to get them in here to get their views if they're expecting to be represented.
Right.
And, with that, then, again, I'd like for us, is it possible, Rob and Dave, can we schedule a meeting and try to pigeonhole that a little bit toward the fiscal issues and the sponsorship and the accounts? You think that'd be something we might want to take on? It wouldn't necessarily have to be during the evening. We could do it during the afternoon or whatever's convenient to everybody, but we got to keep it going.
I mean, obviously, we all have schedules, but yeah, we need to, like you said, or Jeremy just said, we've been sitting on this thing for, in my humble
Drive me
opinion,
nuts. Yeah.
way too long, and have failed to act. And we need to start acting if we're ever going to get this park, Citizens Park and Sports Complex done. So I'm ready. Whenever we'll work out schedules and press on from there.
If you can tell us what a better day for you is during your schedules, and once we get knowing everybody and knowing each other, then that the better.
But day or night, I mean.
Yeah, I can
I'm
make it
in.
any time basically, and Dave and everybody else. Tim, I don't know how your schedule comes into play off of this, but
Thursdays and Fridays are usually good for me. I teach Monday through Wednesday, so Thursdays and Fridays are good during the day and the evening.
Thursday evening, probably. If we're on Thursdays and Fridays, Thursday evening would be best for me.
Thursday evening. Where are we?
You've got this Thursday, and the next is Thanksgiving, and then after that.
Well,
would
we
be
won't want to do it Thanksgiving if we want to keep the families together. So. Want to do it next Thursday?
The
Next week is
16th,
Thanksgiving.
mean 2 days from now, or the 30th?
30th.
Okay.
Good. And I'll pass over to the township.
I'll give you some time to maybe find out more information from the state, Rob.
So 11:30.
Or the county, of what we're allowed to do, not allowed to do.
If that's better for you.
Yeah.
What is a good time for you? Because we normally,
Anytime after 4:30.
okay, we want to do it like at 5.
That works.
And Kevin, can you get the public notice out on that, please? And as I said, I'll pass that over to the township, and if they want to attend, they'll be welcome to.
That's not.
And then Jeremy or anybody else, if you can think of anything that might be pertinent that evening, without making it an all-evening deal, if we can kind of keep it toward the fiscal issues or the organizational or administrative side, however we want to call this. I think that would serve our best purposes that evening, maybe, respectfully. Okay, going back to that meeting this morning, do you have something?
Well, I like what Mr. Whitaker said, but I was just going to say maybe you could do some of the paving parts way back. I know a lot of times, like when they build new neighborhoods and stuff, before they get the houses up, they go in, they flatten it out, they put the roads and curbs in, kind of neat. But if you utilize more in a couple fields, parking has always been an issue down there. And I don't think you got to get a medic down there or whatever. You go down there, and they're going to have to 4-wheel drive it. So maybe, and petroleum costs are down, but maybe get some of the paving pushed back where it's been flattened down there, where the circus went back. I don't know. Just what I thought.
We actually brought that up in the meeting, and if we were going to try to go down there, we were talking about just doing gravel for now, right behind Suburban Propane.
Absolutely.
We're going to need
that's
gravel
a great
anyway,
idea.
which is what soccer uses now. They use, I mean, it's
Yeah.
100 yards wide of gravel.
No, I think that's great. You push that back, it'd be good.
And any day, hopefully any day, the township has culvert, but we'll be putting that access road on the south side of Suburban Propane and bring that in the backside over behind where we've got that spur to the west of the ballpark, which will give us entrance and egress off of 2 points at that time. So
It's probably one of the cheaper routes to show development, and also it's gonna be favorable to parents and sports goers that they can go back there a little farther, and again, we're not clobbering all in that little small parking area. It's just a thought, food for thought.
I did notice something on our flyover. We do have a schematic of the Speedway's corporate headquarters in there. So when that comes into play, when we hit Speedway, then we can show, this is your headquarters
Pop up a big
right here in there.
7-Eleven sign.
So,
Selling slushies at the concession stand.
again, this morning we met with
I get you a
Jeremy
coupon.
Levan and Levan Group, and they did say that usually for most people that they contact, for the first contact, we were 2 steps ahead of most people they deal with. So with the topography and with the plan that we presently have made for it, then they were more than enthused about trying to come in and do the work with us. But as he said, we've got to know how much work's in front of us and get the bids out on that and get it taken care of. Trying to think if anything else was measurable off of it. They recommended to put it in the phase stage. Recommended using the topsoil that we have to backfill, to elevate our fields by a couple feet on the actual physical side of this, and save us a lot of money off of that, because the raising the elevation and a couple feet in that such a grand area is going to be measurable. And last but not least, I would entertain a motion to expend up to $17,000 for fencing along the north side of Enon Park presently, between the village, the present Enon Park, and the Weekly property, also known as Alliance Electric at this point. There is a fencing across there. The fencing, it does not suffice at this point, and part of the reason of doing this is a work in progress with the property owner for future considerations. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to put 500 foot of 6-foot chain link according to the estimate that has been given to us, and 275 foot of 42-inch chain link on the north side of the property from the northwest corner of Enon Park presently. And if you look at the plans, that's back by where the handicap accessible park is. That would run toward the street itself. If I could get a second.
I'll second. So it's going to go from
Here you go.
here to the road, or to the end of the tree line.
Correct. The pond is back here, so it will run from this corner all the way out here.
To the street, or roughly to the street.
Yeah, the fencing is on our property. It still has the survey stakes there. It is something we need to do.
So we're in the discussion phase. We have a motion in a second. So just to clarify a little bit, part of the fence that was up there, we took down. It was on water department property if you would, give a boundary for the well field that's been there for years, that fence. That is down. The rest of that fence is pretty much junk. This would redefine the water department boundaries.
We took down from to the road just about halfway.
Yeah, it's
there.
gone.
It's gone.
And the rest of it is
Then
bad.
they put up a new gate on their property, and the rest of it's just as bad. It's the old farm fence, wire fence.
And we would prefer that fence to be on our property, on the water department property.
It probably should be.
And that's, in my opinion, that's the right way to do it, instead of splitting and all that kind of stuff. Just put it on our property and get that north side with a boundary again, with a fence.
Yeah.
Is that something the business is asking? Sorry.
Any discussions here?
I do have a question. What account will the money come out of? Will some of it come out of the water?
It would all come out of water.
All come out, okay.
Yes.
And the current estimate is at $14,400. By the quote for 17,000 is just to give some leeway there in case something would happen with the bid that we've got.
Yes.
But in answer to your question, I don't think it's 100% the business is asking for it. It's more of a joint agreement that it's the right thing to do.
Any other comments, questions? Ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay. Call the roll.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the first and the second on that.
Rick, and then I second.
Mr. Babcock,
Yes.
Mrs. Sweet,
Yes.
Mr. Bear,
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mr. Avery,
Yes.
Mr. Hannah.
Yes, and thank you.
That motion does pass. Thank you very much. Rick, anything else?
No, just that we need to figure out what we're going to do about that field before we maybe get the survey done, whether we want to try to
Roll it
reinvigorate it
or excavate it.
I'd recommend to everybody to go by there and look at it real close, particularly from the west side looking east. You can see a lot of the knobs and so that.
Right.
I think if the soccer is interested, once
Yeah.
Jay takes a look at it, and I don't know, again, in my head, I still have the idea of the roller, and if he thinks that would be suitable for them to play on it, I think that's a great path to take.
I just know that both of my kids have played Enon Say soccer within the last 5 years, and some places that we played, I mean, were far worse than what's down there.
Yeah, and that may be because last I heard, people were leaving because they didn't want to play on those fields back there. But again, that's sometimes the grass only isn't greener someplace
Right.
else. But thank you.
I'll reach out to him, though.
Thanks for your reports. Appreciate it. No new business. Brooke, comments from the public?
Down there. I knew I'd forget. No, I love
Come up here.
I love the slideshow. The only thing I would say is I get caught up in some details. I really like how you put citizens and sports park there. That's not on the very front. It's real wordy.
I saw that too. As soon as I put it up there,
I
Brooke,
was like,
I
I
saw
like
that.
citizens and sports park. That
It says
smaller.
Sports Parks Complex,
is
and I need to
twice.
take park out.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. I 100%.
So that's my only
never even
suggestion. Is
noticed
decide
it.
what we're kind of calling it.
I never even noticed it until I saw it right there, and I said, "No, that's not what I want."
Kane,
I think Rick made me change it.
Poor Rick is all the.
I did the first clerical.
But I really like that slideshow.
It
It's
also
really
come
good.
down to the naming rights. I mean, sports might not even be in the official name once we figure out how. that's
No,
gonna go.
but it's. I mean, you just have to be when you're presenting it
Sure.
to someone. You've got to know what you're presenting.
Right.
If
Well, sure, I think that
changing
looks
the name
fantastic,
of what
but
you're
that's,
calling it.
Yes.
But there should be no park between sports and complex.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only other thing is that if I was divvying up that much money in a phase or a big part of that, one of my big questions that you guys said how do you keep it running?
Right.
So I don't know if there's a slideshow on, I mean, you're not going to have all the details and you're not going
Right.
to go in the nitty gritty, but like kind of having what Enon is going to have a part of that, because I know most sports parks out there are not always, they're privately ran.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you'll find,
So-
Brooke, in this is that when you're going into a corporation and asking for funding, they'll kind of go between two options. Do you want the bigger one up front, which sometimes is a fiscal challenge for some corporations, or can we make a smaller donation towards the build and then sign up to do, and I'm picking a number, 5 or 10 years of, and I'm picking a number again,
Right.
$200,000
Right.
to help sustain it. So it comes as part of that. That will be part of because you don't put everything on this pitch deck.
Right.
There's a second pitch deck that you normally leave with them that talks about some of the details. But but when you get to the point where they're willing to make an offer of $1 million or 500,000 or whatever the case may be, then you talk to them about, okay, do you want that all up front or, sustainment? Because the naming rights would be the same if there's a legal commitment to do that.
Right.
So working with them on the sustainment side of it, because they may be willing to do $2 million and $100,000 for the next 5 years.
Right.
Something like that. But you cannot do this without having a sustainment plan in mind, like you're
But
talking
you need
about.
to be able to answer that question somehow.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to ask you that, and you have to be able to respond to that.
Right, and the response is we will.
Several videos on YouTube that's specifically toward the private and public partnerships and how to run these facilities afterwards. Similar to AIA, this SRC group manages that and does all that. The operations, the daily operations there from the public side of it.
I mean, that's what I would want to know. Are you guys going to run this, or are you handing this off to someone else that, I'm giving you guys the money to build it, but in 5 years, is it crumbling and my name's on there still? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's running this?
And we haven't decided that, but I will tell you, Brooke, this, that my recommendation and the recommendation of others that have done this is that we set up an NPO to run this.
Yeah.
And then we pay, the NPO pays rent, to the village for that property, and whatever the village is going to do, whatever the agreements are for sustainment and things like
Right.
that, whether the village street crew is going to take care of this or whether we're going to hire, but we're going to have revenues either from the running the sports park or from the sponsorships, donations.
Right.
And then as far as the sustainment goes, because that's not what we do.
Right.
Okay, but you can have, something, an organization to do that would not only help schedule things, but do the sustainment and keep the village out of that day-to-day operation of just the sports park.
Right.
But the decision may be another way around. They may.
Because when you say
Christie's
citizens,
gonna run all this
right?
kind of
When we
stuff. I
say
have no idea.
citizens park, usually when you're doing stuff like that, you're not going to get money from your citizens to come use your park.
No, not
Correct.
the park, but for the fields when we have tournaments and things like that. Yes.
Okay. So, and that's kind of where that would be like before our soccer and baseball fields did not pay where they were. And they're used to paying now. So I don't think they would at all be opposed probably to chipping in, especially maintenance, their own stuff. But, when it's not a normal sports park as in, you go to other ones and they're renting that out. Everyone is paying to play on that field for every game. So, you know what I mean? So it's a little different, right?
That actually came out this morning because we were looking at the fields and we were talking about access, particularly of the turf fields. And, okay, are you going to control the access of that? Who's going to be able to play on it? How are you going to schedule that compared to the ones that don't have the turf across them? Is that going to be for anybody who wants to go down there and play? So a lot of this stuff has still got to be figured out, and we're to the point now where some of this free advice that we got originally is not free anymore. Somebody asked me the other day about doing the price comparison for turf versus the grass. Well, now I'm to the point of, if you sign the contracts for us, and it's not just one group, it's if you're going to take our time, then we want to have this contract for services with you guys to provide you this information. And the simple off the cuff question and answers I was getting answers for before are starting to drive.
Right. I wouldn't want details. I would just need to know, you want to give back to your community. So your Say Soccer, who's not gonna try, is a nonprofit not trying to make any money, just given to your, your rec kids. Are you charging them? You're not making any money off of them. per
There
se.
will
You're
be
not making a
nominal
whole
fees,
lot of money
right.
off of them. So how are you paying for that? Your little league baseball, you know what I mean? I get it. You tell them like we're gonna have 3 weekends where you can't play here, and we're gonna host tournaments and make money off of that. Is that gonna fund, enough to fund? You know what I mean? They're gonna not want a whole lot of details, but I'm gonna need to know how. If I'm giving you $3 million, how is that gonna? Does the Village of Enon have enough money to sustain that for 10 years?
And we have to figure out what that best answer is.
And the
but
answer
we
is
need-
probably not
Yeah,
out of our
oh.
current operating funds
No,
or the
no,
money we
no.
receive from the tax levies. But
No way.
again, sustainment donorship is a fabric, part of the fabric of corporate social responsibility.
Right.
It just is, Brooke. So we know that we're going to, when we do this, that part of that pitch is going to be for sustainment donorship as well as initial capitalization donorship.
That makes
We
sense.
also have a place I ran across is Pacesetter Park in Sylvania outside Toledo. And that's the organization that's being ran by the Board of Education, it's being ran by the township and the village up there of Sylvania. Of course, they've got a little downtown in Sylvania, but they run it and it's self-sustaining off the tournaments they have every weekend. And they have grass for the softball, they have 126 acres, which almost twice the size we've got, but it's still what I would consider a magnificent place to play, and it's a draw-to place, and maybe how they operate that, we could pick their brains a little more on what they do on the day-to-day side of that to keep it looking so beautiful.
And you also have to keep total cost of ownership in mind as well. Because if you put AstroTurf in there, your maintenance to that is not near as much as if you put turf in, then you have to water it, seed it, mow it, keep on growing it, all those kinds of things. So you look at a 5 or 10 year strategic plan of how you're going to do this. Well, maybe putting in turf, even though the resources are higher up front, is a better cost to the village, than putting in grass and then paying labor to mow it, water it, seed it, all those kinds of things, drain it, afterwards.
So we need to get all of that sorted out, and those
Just
are
a
really, those are
general
really good
idea
questions.
of how that is
Right.
going to be run. Not
Yes.
not any details, but just a general idea would probably be one slide that I would add to it was kind of
I mean, in my mind, again, just things thinking about would just be honest with you. My proposal would have been to charge other people's fees, but the Village of Enon clubs, soccer, softball, things like that, would not have to pay.
That's not our goal, is to make them pay. I don't anticipate, and we've made it very clear in our meetings with the Board of Education, that don't expect to come down there and have free reign of the fields either, because part of this is
Right.
based off the fact that.
But that's not a village, or say program either. So
But we have to sort all of that out, and I think that's a great question, and we need to be able to answer.
there's a
that.
lot of
And
questions I posed.
There's a
a
lot.
lot of stuff.
There's a lot of questions I posed up here before we still don't have answers to. And you just added a bunch more, which is fine because
Thanks,
these
Mark.
things need to be thought out.
all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
Yay.
Thank you guys for coming. Good to see everybody.
This year.